Hook, the social media trap. Have you ever picked up your phone, opened Instagram or Facebook, and suddenly felt that everyone else's life seemed happier, more successful, or more meaningful than yours? A glowing smile, a beautiful vacation, a perfect photo. All of it leaves you with a heavy sigh, whispering inside, "Why does my life feel so small compared to theirs?" Deep down, every human being longs for acceptance, for recognition, for love. Social media, created with the intention of connection, has gradually turned into a distorted mirror. It reflects back not truth, but carefully curated moments designed to appear flawless. We look at these polished fragments and begin to believe they represent reality. And so we compare our messy, imperfect, living selves against someone else's highlight reel. The result? We feel less, we feel small, we feel never enough. Comparison is a cycle that never ends. The more we compare, the more inadequate we feel. The more inadequate we feel, the more desperately we try to prove our worth, through posts, pictures, likes, and comments. Slowly we hand over our freedom to a screen. Social media stops being a tool, and instead becomes an invisible prison where our worth is measured in fleeting digital applause. Buddhism calls this attachment, clinging to approval, to praise, to the illusion that our value is determined by others. And when we cling, our mind is no longer free. We become prisoners not of other people, but of our own endless craving to be seen, to be liked, to be validated. But here is the truth. You don't have to live this way. You don't have to keep chasing shadows. Your value was never in a number, a filter, or the gaze of strangers. The way out is simple but powerful, living true to yourself. When you pause and notice the ache of not enough, you begin to see it for what it really is, a product of comparison, not truth. Without comparison, you are already whole. Without measuring against anyone else, you are already complete. And when you choose to stop, breathe, and return to yourself, you begin to feel a new kind of joy. A joy not tied to approval, but to presence. Imagine waking up without the weight of wondering what others think. Imagine posting, or not posting, and feeling equally at peace. Imagine connecting with people not to be validated, but simply because you genuinely want to share and love. That is freedom. That is happiness. And this freedom is not far away. It begins with one small choice. Stop comparing. Even for a moment, when you let go of measuring yourself against others, a space of peace opens inside you. Nurture that space. Let it grow. Over time, this practice becomes a way of life. A life no longer trapped in the illusions of social media, but grounded in authenticity, simplicity, and joy. So here's a question for you. Are you ready to step out of the trap and live for yourself, not for the endless comparisons of the digital world? Why we compare? If we look back into human history, comparison is not something new. Long ago, when people lived in small tribes, survival often depended on knowing one's place within the group. Who was stronger? Who was weaker? Who was respected? Who was not? All of this mattered for safety, belonging, and survival. In that environment, comparison was a natural instinct, a compass that told us how to fit into the tribe. But as society evolved, that instinct didn't disappear. It simply took on a new form. Today, instead of measuring our place in a small tribe, we measure our worth in the eyes of society. Instead of comparing ourselves with a handful of people around us, we now compare ourselves with thousands, sometimes millions, of faces on social media. What was once a survival instinct has been magnified 1,000-fold by technology, fueled by endless news feeds and curated images that rarely reflect reality. And so, we live in a global village where comparison never stops. With just a swipe, we see someone else celebrating success, traveling the world, or radiating happiness. With just a click, we are confronted with highlight reels of other people's lives. And without even realizing it, we place ourselves on a scale. Am I enough? Am I as good as them? Is my life meaningful compared to theirs? From a Buddhist perspective, this cycle of comparison is simply another form of attachment. It's attachment to an image of ourselves, to a fragile identity built on praise, approval, and being better than others. We cling to the belief, if I am admired, I am valuable. If I fall behind, I am worthless. But everything we chase, beauty, success, recognition, is impermanent. What we hold today may fade tomorrow. What we win today may be lost the next day. If our sense of worth rests on these shifting sands, our peace will always be unstable. The irony is that the more we compare, the further we drift from our true selves. We start living someone else's life, chasing images and ideals that are not our own. We forget that every person has their own path, their own rhythm, their own unique beauty that cannot be copied. In the whirlwind of comparison, we abandon our authenticity to chase shadows that can never be caught. Buddhism reminds us that comparison is a game of the ego. The ego wants to feel superior. I am better. Or it collapses into inferiority. I am worse. Yet both are forms of bondage. If we feel better, we fear losing our place. If we feel worse, we fear being left behind. In either case, the mind is restless, never free. So how do we break free? The first step is awareness. Noticing when comparison arises, seeing it clearly for what it is, not truth, but an old evolutionary habit. The second step is mindfulness, observing the thought of comparison without resistance, like watching a cloud drift across the sky. The third step is self-compassion, remembering that your worth is not defined by being more or less than anyone else, but by the simple fact of your unique being. Think of it this way. If a rose kept comparing itself to a lotus, it would never bloom into its own beauty. A rose is radiant only when it dares to be a rose, not when it tries to become a lotus. Human beings are the same. Each of us is like a flower in the great garden of life. When we stop comparing, we begin to blossom into the fullness of who we are. In the end, comparison is not the enemy. It is just an echo of our evolutionary past. The problem isn't that comparison arises. It's that we believe it defines us. Once we see it for what it is, a shadow, not the truth, we are no longer bound by it. And in that moment, we discover freedom. The freedom to live our own life, to walk our own path, and to rest in the beauty of being exactly who we are. The cost of constant comparison. Every time we open our phones, scroll through social media, or glance at someone else's life, a subtle voice whispers inside, "You're not enough." It's quiet at first, a fleeting feeling of inadequacy, but the more we compare, the louder it becomes. Before long, we find ourselves trapped in an endless cycle of measuring, competing, and silently suffering. The emotional cost of comparison is heavy. It wears us down in ways we don't always notice. Anxiety creeps in, fueled by the thought that we're falling behind. Jealousy takes root, poisoning our joy when we see others succeed. And beneath it all lies a chronic dissatisfaction. No matter what we achieve, it never feels like enough, because there's always someone who seems to have more. This cycle robs us of authenticity. Instead of living from our heart, we begin to perform. We dress not for comfort, but for approval. We speak not from honesty, but from what we think will gain us validation. Slowly, without realizing it, we trade the truth of who we are for the fleeting currency of likes, comments, and recognition. And yet, the more we receive, the emptier we feel. Because deep down, we know it's not real. Comparison is like running on a treadmill that never stops. No matter how fast you run, no matter how much effort you give, the finish line always moves further away. Someone will always be wealthier, more beautiful, more successful, more admired. And if our happiness depends on being better than someone else, then peace will forever remain out of reach. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that this chase is rooted in attachment. We cling to an identity, an image of ourselves that we want others to validate. But this identity is fragile, always shifting, always uncertain. It cannot bring lasting peace because it's built on comparison, and comparison is endless. True freedom comes not from proving ourselves against others, but from letting go of the need to compete at all. Imagine this. Instead of scrolling through life like it's a scoreboard, we pause. We take a breath. We notice what is already here, the simplicity of this moment, the gift of being alive. When we stop comparing, we discover something extraordinary. Our worth was never in question. It doesn't depend on numbers, opinions, or external measures. It lives quietly within us, steady and unshaken. The cost of constant comparison is losing sight of this truth. But the moment we step off the treadmill, we reclaim our energy, our joy, and our authenticity. We return to the simple beauty of being ourselves, imperfect, evolving, yet deeply enough just as we are. So the invitation is this. The next time you catch yourself comparing, don't fight it, don't judge it, simply notice it. Smile gently at the voice that says, "You're behind." And then remind yourself, I am not in a race. I am here to live my own path. That shift, small yet profound, is where freedom begins. A shift in perspective. One of the most haunting questions many of us carry is, why don't I have what they have? It's the quiet whisper that arises as we scroll through social media, when we hear a friend talk about their achievements, or when we see someone walking a path that seems easier, brighter, more successful than ours. That question gnaws at us, feeding the subtle belief that our life is lacking, that we are somehow behind, that we must keep pushing harder just to catch up. But the Dharma invites us to pause and ask a very different question. Am I living true to myself? This is the shift that changes everything. Instead of constantly looking outward to measure our worth against others, we turn inward to listen deeply to our own heart. Suddenly, the question is no longer, do I have as much as they do? But am I walking the path that feels right and true to my soul? In Buddhism, Success is not a scoreboard where we tally up possessions, titles, or social approval. Life is not meant to be a competition where our value rises and falls depending on how we compare. The Buddha taught that true wealth is santuti, the deep contentment of knowing enough. When the heart rests in contentment, even the simplest things, a meal of plain rice, a modest shelter, a moment of stillness, become treasures. This kind of happiness cannot be measured in numbers or likes, because it is not dependent on the outside world at all. Why is contentment so precious? Because in the world of comparison, there is always another step, another prize, another person ahead. The rich long for more influence, the admired crave greater fame, and those who seem enough on the outside often feel hollow on the inside. The treadmill never stops. But when someone pauses, takes a breath, and realizes what I have is already enough, they step off the wheel of endless striving and into a freedom that can only be found here and now. Freedom is not about having everything others have. It is about no longer measuring your life by theirs. The moment we release that burden, the heart becomes light. We are no longer slaves to praise or prisoners of criticism. Instead, we return to the quiet truth of simply being present, simply being ourselves. From this place, relationships deepen. We don't need to perform or pretend. We no longer seek approval as a form of survival. What we offer others is authenticity, not a mask. Imagine this. Every morning, instead of rushing to check who's doing what, who's succeeding where, or who's living better, we begin with a single gentle question. How do I want to live today so that it feels true to me? That small shift opens an entirely new space. Suddenly, we are not swept away by comparison or envy. Instead, we stand grounded in our own journey. And here's the beautiful paradox. When we stop comparing, we don't actually lose anything. In fact, we gain so much more. We gain peace of mind. We gain the energy to create. We gain the joy of noticing the small, overlooked blessings around us. The fullness of life doesn't come from having more than someone else. It comes from feeling whole, right here, with what we already have. This is the shift in perspective that the Dharma invites us to embrace. From comparison to contentment, from competition to authenticity, from scarcity to abundance of the heart. And when that shift takes root, something extraordinary happens. Freedom begins to blossom inside us. Not the kind of freedom promised by society, but the inner freedom of a heart that no longer needs to chase, to grasp, or to prove. That is where real happiness lives. Practical steps to break free. It's one thing to talk about letting go of comparison, and another to actually live it. We all know the theory. Stop comparing. Stop measuring your worth by others. But then, almost without noticing, we pick up our phone, scroll through social media, and the old voice whispers again. They're ahead of me. Their life is brighter, better, happier. That's why we need practices, not just ideas. Concrete, everyday steps that interrupt the old patterns and plant seeds of freedom. Here are 5 practices you can begin today. 1. Mindful pause. The power of 3 breaths. The first step isn't to crush comparison or pretend it doesn't exist. It's simply to notice. The very moment you catch yourself thinking, why don't I have what they have? Pause. Don't fight the thought. Don't follow it down the rabbit hole. Just stop and take 3 slow, conscious breaths. In those 3 breaths, you give yourself space. You are no longer swept away by envy or fear. You are watching it with awareness. That tiny pause is the beginning of freedom. 2. Gratitude journal. Training the mind toward abundance. Our brains are wired to look for what's missing. That's why gratitude is so transformative. It retrains the mind. Each morning, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They don't need to be grand. A night of deep sleep, a friend who truly listens, the simple miracle of breath filling your lungs. By naming them, you shift from scarcity to abundance. Day by day, your heart learns to rest in what you already have instead of chasing what you don't. 3. Limit social media. Protect your inner space. Social media magnifies comparison 1,000-fold. Remember, what you see is a highlight reel, not the whole story. Behind every smiling photo is a human being with struggles you will never see. If certain accounts trigger envy or leave you feeling small, don't hesitate. Unfollow them. Curate your feed. Fill it with voices that nurture peace, not anxiety. Your inner world is precious. Protect it as carefully as you would protect your home. 4. Celebrate small wins. Progress over perfection. Comparison blinds us to our own growth. We're so busy looking at who's ahead that we forget to honor how far we've already come. Begin a new practice. Celebrate your small wins. Maybe you read a few pages of a book instead of scrolling. Maybe you listened patiently instead of reacting in anger. Maybe you took a quiet walk instead of losing yourself in busyness. These may look small from the outside, but they are signs of real growth. Happiness is not perfection. It is the joy of becoming, step by step. 5. Compassion practice. Turning envy into connection. One of the most powerful shifts is to meet envy with compassion. The next time jealousy arises, silently send a blessing. May you be happy. May you be well. At first it may feel forced, but keep practicing. Over time, something softens. What once felt like a wall between you and others becomes a bridge. Envy says, I lack. Compassion says, we are connected. And in that shift, your own heart is healed. These steps may seem small, but they carry enormous power. Freedom doesn't come all at once. It blooms in tiny choices, repeated day after day. The pause before reacting. The note of gratitude. The decision to unfollow what harms your peace. The courage to celebrate your growth. The blessing whispered instead of resentment. Each of these is a seed. Planted daily, they grow into a life that is lighter, freer, more authentic. So begin today. Choose just one of these practices and try it. 3 breaths, 3 gratitudes, 1 act of compassion. Let it be simple. The path of freedom is not about striving harder. It's about remembering that you already carry everything you need to live fully and well. A short mindfulness practice. Give yourself a few quiet minutes. It doesn't take much. Just sit down, set aside all unfinished tasks, and allow both your body and your mind the chance to rest. Sit still in a comfortable place. Gently close your eyes, place your hands on your lap, and begin to breathe. A slow, deep breath in, and a soft, steady breath out. Don't force it. Simply let your breath unfold naturally, just as it is. Feel the coolness of the air as it enters, and the lightness as it leaves. Now, In this space of stillness, bring to mind all the labels you carry, the ones the world has placed on you, intentionally or not. Labels tied to your appearance, your wealth, your career, your social status, your role in the family, or even the images you compare yourself to on social media. You may notice them appear one by one in your mind. Beautiful, not beautiful. Rich, poor. Successful, unsuccessful. Liked, forgotten. Each label is like an invisible tag you've been wearing on your chest, heavy and restricting. They make you forget the person you truly are beneath it all. Now, imagine that with every exhale, one label begins to dissolve, like a thin piece of paper being carried away by the wind, or like smoke fading into the air. One breath releases the label of appearance. The next carries away career. Then comes money, success, failure. Layer by layer, they fall away. There is no need to fight them or rush the process. Just let them dissolve with gentleness. Keep breathing. Notice how your body feels lighter, your mind more spacious. Until, after several breaths, you realize that all those labels have vanished. There is no more, I must be this, or I'm not enough of that. No more comparisons, no more roles to play. There is only you, sitting here with your breath. And in that simple moment, you see a profound truth. Just by being here and now, you are already enough. Whisper softly to yourself, in this very moment, I am enough. Repeat this affirmation within, letting it sink into every breath, every cell of your body. In this very moment, I am enough. This feeling may even bring tears to your eyes, because perhaps it has been so long since you last allowed yourself to release all measures, all standards, and simply exist as you are. Don't open your eyes too quickly. Stay with this state a little longer. Feel the peace that doesn't come from what you own or what you achieve, but from giving yourself permission to simply be. When you're ready, take one more deep breath in and exhale slowly. Gently open your eyes. The world before you is the same. It still holds challenges, noise, and comparisons. But inside, there is a new steadiness. You now know that whenever you return to your breath, you can release all those labels and remember the truth. You are already enough. Carry this feeling with you throughout the day. When comparison arises, when insecurity knocks at your door, simply pause, sit down, take 3 deep breaths, and whisper, in this very moment, I am enough. The freedom of living now. You don't need to win at someone else's game. You don't need to chase the standards the world sets for you. Because no matter how hard you try, there will always be someone richer, more beautiful, more successful, more admired. That cycle never ends. And if you spend your whole life comparing, if you keep running after it, you'll end up losing, not to others, but to yourself, because you never truly lived for you. True freedom begins when you choose to write your own story, instead of copying someone else's. Life doesn't need another imitation. The world needs you. Your real laughter, your real pain, your real light shining from within. When you live as yourself and not as someone's shadow, something miraculous happens. The weight you've been carrying, the pressure, the endless burden, they were never real to begin with. So pause. Stop comparing. Stop asking, am I enough? Do I measure up? Because the truth is, you are already enough. You don't need to be the perfect version in someone else's eyes. You only need to become the most authentic version of yourself. I invite you, right here and now, to ask yourself, who am I really living for? Am I being true to my own heart? And if the answer is no, don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait for achievements or approval. Tomorrow is not promised, and no amount of validation can guarantee happiness. Begin living now. Live in each breath. Live in the small choices you make. Have the courage to say no to what doesn't belong to you. Have the courage to walk the path that brings you peace, even if others don't understand. Have the courage to smile as you move forward, knowing the path you're on is the only one meant for you. And here's the message I want to leave with you. Stop comparing. Start living. The only person you ever need to become is the most authentic version of yourself. If these words touched you, don't just listen. Act. Today, choose one small way to live more honestly with yourself. Maybe it's saying no to something you don't want. Maybe it's sharing a truth you've been holding back. Or maybe it's simply sitting quietly and reminding yourself, I am enough. I also want you to comment below. Share one label you're ready to let go of. One mask you no longer want to wear, so you can begin living with true freedom. Write it down, because when you put it into words, you plant a seed in your heart. And who knows, your comment might inspire someone else who needs to hear exactly what you've discovered. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so we can keep walking this journey together. Every video here is not just words, it's another step back home to your truest self. You deserve freedom, you deserve truth, and you deserve to be fully, unapologetically yourself. The greatest freedom is the courage to be yourself.